Let's freaking go. Lance Brozdowski in the house. Hello, everyone. Welcome into another Live with Lance. And, it's past the new year now. And so some news is slow, Lance. But,
It is a little slow, yeah.
we're going to
Is
try
this
to,
all connected to Sasaki? I think that's why
what's up?
everything's slow. I think
Yeah,
I think everything is slow because it's connected to him. Everyone's waiting for this January 15th, the 23rd window to pass.
yeah. I mean, it's funny because, right, we talk about like how it was not going to hold things up because it's a minor league deal, but it seems like it's now holding things up.
It's tough to be like, let me extend an offer to like a Jack Flaherty or something if we think we have a shot at so and so. I'm not saying the Cubs specifically, I'm just saying general. So
Yeah.
I could see how like they're pitching to him like, hey man, you'll be in this rotation. And you go sign a pitcher, now you don't have a rotation spot. Is he really you really convince him to come to you? So I wonder. I also wonder from the Cubs perspective whether if you basically do nothing else aside from trading for Kyle Tucker and getting Sasaki, whether you can like grade that as an A off season and sell that to fans and not have to do anything else. I kind of think I hate to say it might be where I'm leaning from like a what they might do standpoint. A
I know.
reliever, Sasaki, Kyle Tucker, and it's like, there it is. That's the offseason.
I mean, I would be happy with if you get he's not the best bat in free agent market because he was a trade, but if you got the best pitcher and one of the top position players in the game, it's a lot better than the last few years.
It's true. It's true. Like that might be the pitch to the fans. It's just like, hey man, this guy's gonna sign potentially during CubsCon, maybe with us. I still think he's probably a West Coast guy, but like the Cubs are definitely in it. You got a 1 in 5 or 6 chance. That's better than the beginning of this whole period where we weren't sure.
Didn't you love Bob Nightingale's tweet of not the White Sox?
Didn't they get a meeting with him? That was like kind of
I don't
surprising.
know
I
how
really
they
got
even
that.
got a meeting with him. I don't know. But hey, before we get too deep into this, guys, I just threw into the comments Lance's YouTube channel. Do yourself a favor, go subscribe. We did not get to 10,000 before the last live, like we had
We
kind of
tried.
incentivized everyone to do. We tried, but I think there was a nice little bump there. You got
It
like
was, yeah. We got like
150.
100 or so, a little bit more than that, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good. There's a lot of questions. I know already seen some in the comments. Just want to say what's up to a few people. What's up, Adam Flanagan? What's up, Sean Hendrickson? What's up, James McNamara, Eric Grossen? Thank you so much for joining us here. Lance, I want to first of all ask you, how was your New Year's?
It was pretty tame. How about yours? It's
Yeah,
chill. I feel like I just turned 30 like 2 weeks ago, so now it's
now you're an old
I don't
guy.
know.
Now you're an old man.
It's not great. It's not great. The body hurts. It's terrible. But
I
anyways,
was sick, so we went and
yeah.
saw some friends, but we were done by 9:00, and I was hoping the next day. One of my friends tweeted at me. Pablo Lopez had been had been traded to the Mets, and then I did some bigger digging down, and I was like, wait. This was a proposal. This wasn't an actual trade. But for a second there, it was the proposal. You gotta hear this because we're gonna talk about Pablo Lopez here in a second too. And please all post your comments, your questions. We're gonna get to those in a second. It was their number 2 prospect, the number 7 prospect, and what's his name? Peterson, the left-handed starter.
David Peterson, yeah.
David Peterson, yeah. And all of that for Lopez and then Christian Vasquez. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, thank God we didn't make that deal, because to me, that was like David Peterson is already almost just as good as Pablo Lopez based on the last year he had. But then I found out it was not a real trade. But if that kind of leads me into just what I want to say is like, is that going to be the cost for Pablo Lopez? Like, it just feels like the Cubs have been in no conversations with trades anymore ever since the Luzardo thing. And B, it just feels like teams are asking too much for starting pitching, man.
I think that's a reflection of what pitchers have gotten paid in the open market, though, right? Like Clay Holmes, who I enjoy the concept of a conversion project on to the Mets, goes for what do you get, like 14 a year or something like that for a couple of years or something along those lines, right?
Yeah,
And it's like
I didn't see the numbers, but that
that's
sounds
a
right.
lot, And like Frankie Montas on the Mets got like 17 a year or something along those lines. Like I think we've seen this market in particular incredibly devalue first baseman and really push up starting pitching. This is why I think it's so hard to convert on trades. And perhaps this is somewhat damning of the medical on a Luzardo type. The fact that the Phillies got him for Starling Cava, who's like a 4 years away middle infield type, really, really good glove, probably one of the best gloves in the minors from short. He'll stick at short, but like right now he's a zero bat. Like he'd be lucky to end up hitting 18 homers in his career. And like that's who got Luzardo. It's like With the price of pitching, I almost wonder whether there was something more there on the medical side that pushed the price down, or if the Cubs were in there and then they saw the medical potentially and were like, no. I don't really know. That
It
price
it
relative to what you're
was
saying on like the Lopez stuff seems weird to me.
it was a medical thing with Luzardo. I had a former Cubs scout reach out to me on Twitter because I had posted something and he was like, "Hey, I'm close to the team," and
Yeah.
it was a medical thing.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's the thing is, right? The Phillies were in a position of like, "Hey, we can roll the dice if it's going to be this low of a cost for another starter
Oh, yeah.
that has high upside and could be only making 5 to 10 starts for the entire year based on his medicals." But the Cubs just aren't in that kind of position. Like I still think they are in desperate need of, I wouldn't just say they need one. I think they desperately need another starting pitcher right now. If you go into the year with Matthew Boyd, who only made 9 starts last year, something like that, and Javier Assad is your number 4 and 5, that puts a lot of pressure on Steele and Managa and Tyone. Like, I think they have to get another guy.
Roki Sasaki. Let's go.
Go get him. Go get him.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I just wonder where it's coming from. I don't think it's coming from free agency. I don't think they're going to drop a ton of money on it. It seemed like Luzardo was the most logical guy there. If the equivalent of a Caba is like Rojas, or I guess maybe a Triantos, he's a little bit closer. I don't know where the value would have lined up on.
Right.
I don't really know what the Cubs are sending back in that deal, potentially whatever was offered. Maybe we'll find out in a year or whatever. This stuff always seems to pop later in time periods and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I struggle to see who on the market fits with them. I don't think they're going to go out and spend $20 million a year on anybody right now. I think as we've seen them execute, a lot of their moves have been through trade. I think because of the monetary side. Like, I just don't think this team is A, willing to go over the luxury tax, and B, come close to the luxury tax. So that leaves you with not a lot of flexibility. Like, I don't know, can they get Yates for $9 million for 1 year? Like, he's old.
I think
Maybe you could
so.
toggle him down to $6 million and give him more of a fine role. Rojas, I wonder, Josh Rojas, the guy who went to the White Sox, was like maybe some middle infield depth. We'll probably get to him and talk more about him. But
yeah,
my read on that was playing time based. I could maybe see how for him it's just more lucrative to go and play, 150 games. I struggle to see how we get that number with the Cubs, unless you have like a complete bottom out from Workman Shaw, or Horner is just not ready. I guess we'll see. We haven't really had any health updates there. Probably get about Cubs kind of whatever, but
yeah,
it's just tough, man. I struggle to see what move is going to be made outside of Sasaki potentially.
Well, and before we go back to Pablo Lopez for a second, I gotta love this Mark Richardson Stro show. I don't see there being a reuniting with Marcus Stroman, but crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
And really quickly, guys, we have a lot of questions already in the comments. Thank you. Keep them coming. I'm going to get to those in probably about 10 minutes here with Lance. But we want a lot of questions, a lot more questions. So if you found out about this live through Twitter, just go click that repost button on Twitter. If you are in the live right now and you have a bunch of Cubs fans, friends, just go ahead and copy this link, send it over to them, because I want to see this. I want to see this room get up to a couple hundred people so that we can have some really, really good questions for Lance. The one thing that doesn't make sense to me, and the reason I think that this has been strange from a financial standpoint, is if you're going to get rid of prospects for a guy like a Pablo Lopez, wouldn't you want that contract to be a little bit more favorable? $21 million for the next 3 years, which right now seems like a steal, just based on how I just said it in a video that I'm gonna release tomorrow about Justin Steele and how we should extend him. But the starting pitcher market feels like ordering guacamole at Chipotle. You're like, wait, how much was that? Right?
It's true.
It's crazy, man. So but my point there being, do you think
Pablo's not cheap is what you're saying?
He's not cheap, but do you think that that's maybe what's been holding it up? Is Jed is like, listen, if we're going to give you prospects, you got to eat a little bit of that contract.
Yeah. That feels like it, right? And I think that's why maybe they seem to be floated more in the Luzardo space, more so than the Castillo space. Because Castillo's, I believe, $21 million a year. I think he's 2 years control. Something around. So it's similar to Pablo Lopez. I believe it's one less year control off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, I struggle with that. I struggle with, this is like that balance. Like we talked about this on the last live in terms of the Bellinger trade, where they only get Petit back and everyone's like, who? And it's like, if you don't want to send money with Bellinger, then this is what's going to happen. Like, it's the same thing with Lopez. It's like, if they don't eat money and you take on $21 million a year for 3 years, then you're not getting anybody. You're not getting a top 10 prospect. You're probably getting like Jonathan Long, who's like a first base type, but like the Twins don't need that. They do a good job developing hitters. Maybe there's a pitcher that's injured that they kind of like on the minor league side, like a Brody McCullough who's never stayed healthy, but I like the underlying metrics on in the Cubs system.
But I think
I don't know what you get.
I think that's my point, though, is like, okay, Cody Bellinger, it was clearly a salary dump.
Yeah.
And it was seen that way from the other side as well. Sorry, I'm trying to get over a cold right now. You got your cat scratching you up, your dog scratching you up. I got my throat scratching.
I got a new puppy that's clawing my face. So yeah.
So that was clearly a salary dump, but then a cheaper salary, but still in that same range, 20 plus. But now for 3 years, so more dollars over the course of the amount of time, and it's not seen, at least my perception is it's not seen as a salary dump. And I think it's just because of the difference in positions. It's starting pitcher versus position player, and just how much value is being put on starting pitchers right now. And I don't know. Like, again, it goes back to like the CBA stuff that's coming up. I just don't know what you do to get control of this stuff. But it seems like it's kind of like in real estate. One house gets sold down the street by a cash buyer and they remove all contingencies, and it's like $100,000 more than it should have been. And now everyone in the neighborhood thinks that they can sell their house for $100,000 more than it should have been. Like, it just,
that's a great point.
It's not a good process.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'd also point out, I think this puts some stress on the Cubs internally from an organizational standpoint. I know we've talked about like bringing in Tyler Zombro, who I think is going to do a great job. It has already made an impact, especially like the Ben Heller signing is a guy he worked with at Tread. So you're seeing him put his fingerprints across the org and pick up some value pitchers and stuff. But on the minor league side, the Cubs pitching is pretty thin. Like, you got a lot of pressure on Horton right now coming off an injury that I mean, we'll see, like I honestly wish that was just like a clean elbow thing where it was like, yeah, I'll be gone for 8 months and he's back, and then TJ and blah, blah, blah. And that's like the shoulder stuff gets funky to me. I think it was trap, but anything back there posteriorly is like a little bit concerning for me on the pitching side. So like everyone's putting a hit on his stock, I don't, beyond that, you can make an argument Birdsell is going to have some kind of impact this coming season, but that's an Assad type. To me, he's more like a 5. So you're putting pressure on this org from like a Birdsell standpoint, and I can't even think of another pitcher that's close, honestly. That would have an Assad-ish style impact and have a possibility of posting like a sub 380 ERA or something. It's basically Birdsell and Horton, I don't think will even debut this year unless the timeline's good.
Let's not forget about Ben Brown.
I consider him on the major league roster already.
Not a prospect anymore, but it kind of still feels like that way. I think he's still rookie status, right?
I believe so. He didn't pitch enough, unless he was on the active roster for long enough. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but
yeah, maybe Michael Arias would be another guy.
Yeah, he's more relief type for me, and like he had some walk troubles at AAA, or it was a AA, wherever he jumped to. He had like a 5 walk per 9, if I remember correctly. So. Okay. I just think they don't have the depth like some other organizations have from the pitching standpoint. So if we're talking about the fact that like the price of pitching has gone up, then I struggle to see how they're going to have to really make some gems out of guys and really lean on guys like Zombro and Casey Jacobson, now the assistant pitching coach after Moskos left and stuff. They got a lot of pressure on, I think, some of the personnel to make these guys much better than perhaps the raw numbers suggest that they internally are on the pitching side.
Speaking of guys that you're unsure of in terms of injuries, have you heard anything about Luke Little, Ben Brown, or Cade Horton, just in terms of their rehab or how they're doing?
No, I haven't, unfortunately. CubsCon is usually where I'll pick up some of that info because some of those guys will be there and I'll chat with them. And I imagine fans will also ask questions about it. So unfortunately, it was like this dead period where you don't get a lot of GMs talking or anything. And it's also not appropriate from a reporter standpoint to ask about other players when they're doing press conferences for like Kyle Tucker or something like that. It's the last time we've heard Jed talk. So I don't have any updates specifically. I'm also not grinding the streets like, Matty Lee or Megan Montemurro from a let me get some info to write about it standpoint. Right. So I'm more like the garbage man scooping up stuff after the fact.
Well, I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but maybe we should go live together from CubsCon. Just saying.
Hey, let's do it. That'd be fun. Yeah. I think I'll be there. I think I'm hosting a panel. I don't know if this is announced yet. I don't even know if I'm actually doing it, but there's a minor league panel I believe is coming back, and I think I'm going to help out with it. So that'll be fun.
Okay, cool. Hey, let's transition to third base, and then I want to get to questions. Yeah. Well, actually, no. You brushed the surface of Sasaki. Let's go deeper on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to. I did a video recently, and I just thought a few things were interesting.
Yeah, let me hear it. I'm putting out a video next week on him too. So this is like our Sasaki window from a content creation standpoint.
Yeah,
I watched years ago, unfortunately. So
Oh, well, then let's just end the live now. That's not fair. No, I want to know, like, if these same things just make you confused as well. First, number one, 20 teams having a pitch with him. Why are not all 30 teams doing that? Was that just strange to you? Or do you think that maybe there was like 10 that Joel Wolf was just like, don't even send anything in?
I imagine that's the case. I'm also a little bit confused in some of the semantics of like, my understanding is that teams submitted materials to them, and then there
Okay.
were actual meetings all held in LA. And I don't think we have a full understanding of who met in LA.
Yeah.
My assumption is that that's where the Cubs had a meeting with Sasaki, and I think all those meetings were in LA. So the Cubs, and I'm tying things together. I'm not reporting this, but like the
Yeah.
Cubs had a meeting with Sasaki in LA. If you didn't have a meeting with Sasaki in LA, you're probably out of the race. And I don't think we have a complete list of who met with him in LA. Like there was a quote from Scott Harris of the Tigers, their GM or whatever his title is, and that was like, we submitted materials and we haven't heard back. And I was like, dude, he already met with teams in LA. Like, I think you missed the boat here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think he went back to Japan and he's contemplating based on who he met with. So I think the full teams is tighter, and that's probably relates to the Nightingale tweet that said there was like 6 teams, not the White Sox. So my assumption there is like those were the teams that he met with, and Nightingale got that information. And there you go. Like, why would he come back and be like, actually, those 6 teams I met with, I forgot to meet with the Brewers, and like I really want to go to Milwaukee, so let's meet in Milwaukee. You know, like that doesn't make any sense to me.
So the next thing, right, is, and this is, I don't understand enough about the Japanese culture, so I'm going to put that
Sure.
asterisk by this. But when you say that you are not making a decision based on other Japanese players being on the team, yet, what was it? 3 of the top 6 teams, 4 of the top 6 teams all have Japanese players on them. The Mets, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Cubs. I mean, I don't know. Like, it seems like you do care about Japanese players being on the team. Am I wrong?
I will say, like, the way I almost look at that from the other angle is like, okay, the teams that have Japanese players clearly have strong funding and presence internationally. And
Okay.
therefore, like, they are more present in the situations where they recruit these international players. So it's maybe not that like it's just phrased in a way like, I'm not considering it from a who is on this team, can I have friends on this team, and do I have someone who speaks my native language on the team? But it just happens that those teams are also the ones that have very strong presences internationally. The one probably being left out of that is maybe the Rangers, who I believe have a really strong relationship with Sasaki, but don't have any
I think they
Japanese
were
players, if I
also on
remember
that
correctly.
list, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So they're the one team that's kind of an outlier there, but they're another team that has a very strong presence. I believe they had like an exclusive contract with, and I don't remember the team. Might have been, I'm not sure who it was at the top of my head, but they definitely had some exclusive contract from a data sharing perspective. So
Wasn't that where you
I look at it
Darvish
that
started?
way. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
like they clearly have built a relationship there. So it's not totally surprising to me. A team that like doesn't spend a ton of money internationally is just not gonna have a shot at Sasaki. He's probably not even gonna know who they are. You know, like
Yeah.
does he pop open MLB game day and rip through games? Like, no, he's watching the West Coast teams and
Yeah.
probably big markets, New York, Boston, Chicago. Like I can't imagine he's doing anything else. He's watching the Rockies. You tell me he reads one article about the Rockies and deflation of movement there because of the altitude, and he's like, "Oh, you're telling me all my pitches will suck here?" No, they do. You know, like this is not happening. Come on,
Check, please.
exactly.
Yeah, the last thing that I'm just thinking about in all this is, okay, so I'm drawing from the Shohei Ohtani experience from last
Mhm.
year. There was reports, whether they were true or not, Shohei doesn't want it leaking who he's meeting with. Dave Roberts, with much confidence at the winter meeting, straight up says, yeah, we met with him. And then 2 days, 3 days later, Shohei is signing with the Dodgers. Again, do we think that it really matters if that stuff leaks, or are they just like trying to like say, I hear a lot of stuff about save face, right? Like save face. I don't want like the people knowing that I met with this team and then it's embarrassing for that team that I didn't sign with them, yada yada. I just wonder if that actually goes into, okay, it got leaked, now they're not interested, or more so just like, hey, that sucks. I wanted to save the face of the Rangers, even though they are not going to be signing me. You
Yeah,
know?
I struggle with that stuff too. I mean, Bruce said it on our show, Bruce Levine, on a Cubs offseason show of ours at Marquee, mentioned that he like said that this Cubs met with Sasaki, and then he said, I don't know if he said on air or off air, but I'm giving it to you guys anyways. He said like I don't believe they wanted it to get out, or he said they were mad that it got out or something like
Yeah,
that. And I was like,
he said
he
that on
said that,
air.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So like, I don't think I was on the show, but I was like, hey, what does it matter? And
yeah.
I also find it really odd that like last year, like I don't think there was an official meeting with the Cubs and Shohei, but there was that big week of, oh, are they in? And that stuff got out. And it's like I didn't hear anything along the lines of like, oh, we really didn't want that to get out. So I
Right.
think it's a weird balance of like, almost makes me wonder whether like the stuff with Shohei was like almost fabricated, and then now this stuff with Sasaki is very serious, and they're like, we don't want any of this out. I guess I haven't worked in an org, I haven't worked in PR. It doesn't make any sense to me why you would want this stuff out. Like
Yeah.
Robert showed that it doesn't matter. Like he's gonna go to the team that's gonna make him the best player and the team he wants to go to.
Yeah.
If he's set on going to the Padres and they say that they met with him 3 times and he's been at their facilities and seen and blah 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 and all this stuff, like is he going to be like, you know what, I'm going to the second city that I hate more because you guys said that we met? Like I just really struggle with that.
Yeah.
It's like the stuff from a free agent perspective of bringing up things outside of monetary side, especially if you're a Boris client. Like he's just going to go where the money's the most. Like I don't really understand how this guy's going to like turn down more money to go to this place that he grew up, even though he hasn't lived there in 25 years or something. It's okay, like so we're working on stuff. We're reporting things that are completely irrelevant to the larger scheme of where this guy's going to end up. So I struggle with some of this stuff, man. I agree.
Look who's back with us again. And for those of you that are here, this is the real Justin Steele. Like everyone last time was like, "Oh, that wasn't Justin Steele. That was some impersonator." This is actually Justin Steele.
So is he making a joke that we're like me or you or Carter Hawkins? Or
one of the names of another guy is Carter Hawkins.
There we go.
Yeah. So
there it is. There it is.
Okay. Distraction. Got back onto topic. Justin, thank you for being here. I'm going to put it to you this way. In fact, Justin Steele's in here, and I'm going to ask him, and I want to see what his answer is too. Okay. So, Lance, I'm going to put this in your terms. You've got, and what I'm getting at here is, I think going to the Dodgers is a boring choice for Roki Sasaki. Okay. I get it. They are, they're probably with him going to win another championship, and, they've got all the money in the world, and he's going to be set up to get a huge payday after the fact, yada, yada, yada. But Lance, all right, so you're with Marquee right now, and, let's just say you get the chance to go national, and MLB Network comes to you and they say, listen, we want you. You're going to be on air twice a week. Maybe one day you're going to get more, but right now you're going to be on air twice a week. FS1 comes to you and says, hey, here's the deal. We're going to start competing with MLB Network. We have this huge plan laid out of how we're going to eventually take over MLB Network, and we want you on air 5 days a week. You're going to be one of the main guys. Which would you be more inclined to take? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'd probably lean to the FS1 stuff. And it's definitely like competing variables. They're like, MLB Network probably has the larger brand, but like FS1 is a big enough brand such that it matters. So I get what you're saying. You're drawing the equivalent of like, why would you go Dodgers when you could go Padres or Giants or Cubs and be more of
Cubs,
like a very front and center, like you are the guy,
Yeah, well, and that's my thing is like, okay, so even if it is the Cubs, but even just, I'm just talking not Dodgers right now. He's a number one across the board with the Padres, with the Cubs, with the Rangers. And with the Dodgers, right, he's going to be right next to Yamamoto and Blake Snell. And it's going to be like, okay, one of the three-headed monsters is going to take us down today, along with Tyler Glass now and everyone else that they've got. And I just feel like, I get it. He doesn't want all of the press. And he said that apparently that he doesn't like press. But wouldn't you want to be on a team that like, hey, I'm going to make such an impact that this city, like I'm the guy in this city. That's kind of where I'm at. And I'm asking the same question to Justin since he's in the if he's still here in the comments. Yeah. Justin, do you want to be a face or do you want to be another guy who is essentially going to be on the favored to win the World Series? And the key there is the goal is like, hey, we're taking over. We're going to be the David to take down Goliath is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Also, I got to suddenly call. Did you just put Sasaki above the rotation, above Steele in the rotation with Steele in the room?
I didn't necessarily say that.
You didn't necessarily. Okay. Because part of the video that I'm going to make is that like I think Sasaki is amazing, but like Sasaki's impact in this coming season to me is like I don't think it's as like Yamamoto-y. Oh my God, this guy's gonna absolutely blow doors through
Okay,
MLB.
so that's good
You
to
know what I
know.
mean? Like
That's good
he's
to know.
got like he dropped 2 ticks last year, and like I don't think we fully understand why. And like
Mm.
sure it was to preserve his arm. I don't fully buy that. You know, like there's some stuff going on there where like he can't spin a ball. You know, like he does not. He's not going to have like a banger sweeper like Yamamoto has. He's averaging like below 2100 RPMs in MPB with a stickier ball, a smaller, stickier ball. So you're generally going to see some regression there. Like this guy's going to have to like just really push velocity and rely on a split. And I wonder whether it's like more of a it's a guy who grows into his role. Like I'd be stunned if he puts up a better season than Shota did this most recent season. I'd be
Really?
absolutely stunned. I
Okay.
would be, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I
So,
just don't. I
and
just think there's more you got to do with him. Like he's got to come into the org. You're gonna have to make adjustments. You got to look at his delivery. Like he needs a better slider. Like he's gonna struggle versus righties unless you just throw splitter 50% of the time. He throws really hard, and like the raw tools are unbelievable. But there's much more of like growth. And the problem is like I struggle with this critique sometimes because at the end of the day, you're paying him the league minimum for 3 years and some
yeah,
international pool money. So
right.
to any team in baseball, you do it immediately. It does not matter. This guy could be like a one war reliever in the pen and leverage, and he's still worth the money. And
Hmm.
that's like where I struggle, where it's like I can critique him all I want because I think there's a lot you can critique about him, but it does none of it matters for the price. From a pure like asset valuation perspective, thinking of it from front office angle down, this guy's an absolute huge value. And that's all that matters. So it's like I think we've pushed away from like more critical analysis, like who he is as a pitcher.
Okay.
Um, and I'm just a little more critical. I've talked to a lot of people in baseball about this, but like he's not Yamamoto, man. Like there's not going to be 6 pitches there, and all of them are going to grade well. It's going to be fastball. You got to get it back to 97 plus. Hopefully he locates it, and then the split. Just throw like a bunch and pray you could figure out some hard slider with him or something.
That's really good insight. And also you've got me like feeling like I just hurt Justin's feelings. So if he's still here,
No, I was
like,
kind of trolling you
no,
there.
that wasn't what I was gonna. But I think what I know about him is the ceiling because of his
This
stuff
exactly the ceiling for sure.
is crazy high. Put him into a decent pitching development
Yeah. I
organization,
and I
and
agree
like
with that. I agree with that.
guys
That's why I'm saying
winner.
like more
Yeah,
this next year or two.
yeah,
You know, like these first couple of years. I'm not totally convinced this is like
yeah,
Yamamoto off the bat.
yeah.
So
Listen, really quick, I want to answer 30 seconds or
yeah.
less because I want to get to the rest of these questions here. Mark Richardson says shots fired. That's funny. So what are the Cubs going to be doing at third base? I mean, first of all, I've heard through the rumor mill that Nico is not going to be ready for opening day, which
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true. It's a rumor mill for a reason. But if that is the case, I mean, Josh Rojas is off the board. You've got, John Heyman saying the Cubs could have an outside shot for Alex Bregman, whatever in the world that means. It's just like the more days that go by, the more it's like, what are they going to do?
Yeah, I struggle a little with the Bregman proposition, because of the money, but we could like I hate doing the money thing, so let's just put that aside. The main thing that if I'm like in a front office looking at him, I'm asking myself like, why did he start chasing more last year? Like his walk rate cut down. You generally start to see some deterioration based on just pure aging curves beyond the age of like 29-ish or so with hitters. And a lot of this comes through chase and like recognition, plate approach, etc. So if you look at like Bregman's walk rate year over year, like it fell like I think close to almost 50% year over year. Like he went from 14% down to like 8 or 9 or whatever, like that is a slight concern for me. If I could convince myself that it's going to pop back up, I'm not totally concerned about paying him 27 a year. But if he's now a guy that's not walking at an elite rate and he's like a 320-ish OBP guy, I'm not like totally sold on that.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to say he's a Crawford box merchant, so to speak, but like he's not going to hit 25 pumps in Wrigley, I don't think. So I struggle a little bit with like, that's where you're going to put $27 million for. I get it's a hole because if Nico's not ready, Shaw goes to second. You got Workman at third. He can't. I don't think he could be a full-time player unless you really take the offensive hit and just bat him 9 to play the pure like defense card because he's an exceptional defender from my understanding. So I struggle a little with like what happens if Horner is not ready. I don't know. I was looking like Jose Iglesias is available. He'd be kind of cheap.
That'd be fun.
I
I would
think
like that.
Mark, yeah, like that's a defensive angle. Whatever you pay him, maybe you just let him go after a couple months if Horner's fine.
Yeah.
I struggle. Like Mark Canha has some connection to Council and stuff, but like he's outfield first base type.
Right.
You know, so I struggle with like where you get this other bench bat from, and Kana probably has other opportunities to play more. I struggle to see how he'd get in the lineup a lot with the Cubs. So third base we knew from the jump is thin, and it's really thin. I think that's why they rule 5 Workman, because they were like, I don't know who we're going after in free agency.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I mean, there's Paul DeYoung, but I mean, to have a
yeah.
ex-Cardinal and ex-White Sox on your team is just, it just feels wrong. All right, let's get to questions here, brother. Kyle Lawson, first of all, says, oh wait, sorry, wrong one. I was going to ask a different
No, you're
question
good.
here. Where did that go? I think it just
Does
bumped
Justin have any
away.
questions? That's what I'm most curious
Yeah.
about.
Okay, here we go. Ed, this is one I was going to ask. Ed Dwyer, what realistic relievers could we pick up? Yeah, realistic. I still think like Yates is realistic.
Yeah, I think Yates is realistic. That's probably the top end of realism based on like the cost side. And then if you go beyond that, I think like Finnegan and Leclerc still makes sense. Or it's Leclerc. I always mess up that final C in the
Yeah.
French
No, you're right.
pronunciation of it or
Leclerc.
whatever.
Yeah.
Leclerc.
Yeah.
I think those two make some sense, but high level realistic is a tough combination. I would say those make the most sense. I think Yates makes some sense. I do think Hodge could be a leverage guy. Like he's going to crush right-handed hitters. I think with his sweeper throwing it a lot. Like I'm very confident that pitch working. I still think the ultimate move here. We mentioned this on the last live too. Is like Tanner Scott makes a ton of sense. I just don't think. I don't think they're going 3 for 45 on him. You know, he also has a Zomber connection. He trains at Shred Athletics, I believe, and it's
That's good to know.
Zomber's the guy that's worked with him. So. But again, like Zomber's not there with $50 million to spend, from my understanding. So I'm not entirely sure if anybody's willing to go on 3 for 45 for him. And it also doesn't help that like Josh Hader's contract, which was also big, is not looking fantastic. So he's a tough one, man. I wonder what that price comes down to. I'd hate to see it be like 4 for 50, you know, and the Cubs are out, where it cuts down, you push up the years a little to get him total value on what he wants around that 45 to 50 window. And you give him 12 a year, you know, like, oh man, I really think that would just be such a fun back end for Council to play around with Scott and Hodge flip-flopping. Both of them get like 20, 25 saves. That's like my ideal situation. I don't know. If not, then Yates is totally fine. If not that, then like you're really betting on Hodge to get 30 saves. You're praying for that, and then you add Finnegan. You could probably get him back to some leverage 8th guy, and then Leclerc, same thing. Is maybe your leverage 8th guy gets some saves. But Leclerc's had walk problems. I feel like most of the time he's been in leverage roles. He hasn't been great. He was really good last year. Finnegan had a ton of saves, but he's kind of the inverse, where it's like the peripherals didn't look great. I do think there's some very obvious tweaks there, which I've mentioned before. He's throwing way too much fastball, in my opinion. So I think there's some maneuvering to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question, Ed, but
no, I mean,
I
think Yates and Finnegan would be definitely legit. I'm surprised there hasn't been more conversation about Leclerc. But I definitely, I am, if there's anything I'm confident in, it's that Tanner Scott's not going to be a Cub. I really don't think Jed is going to do that. I just don't think Jed is going to do it. And
smart teams don't tend to play these relievers, so I get it.
Yeah. All right. Francisco Santiago says, what would be your scouting report on Thielbar? Does he seem like a good investment?
He's an older dude, really not great season last year, like 5+ ERA, but prior to 3 seasons, he was really solid. You watch him throw, you can see he's like a higher slot guy. So like we got Steele in the room talking Steele. Steele's like, I think pretty 3/4, maybe a little bit high, cuts his fastball. Thielbar cuts his slightly, but he rides it a ton. So like you watch Steele and you almost think that fastball has like some natural cut to it. It almost looks like a cutter. To some extent, I almost think we could classify it as a cutter. I know Justin, I believe, says it's a 4-seam, but Thielbar like rides his 4-seam. He's almost like, I don't want to say he's Shota, but he's Shota-esque in the fact that like he has a big carry fastball from the left side. And then he's got really good spin capacity. His slider and I think his sweeper curveball off that were both really strong.
Nice.
And he throws with opposite handedness. He's like a matchups guy for me. Honestly, the joke in my head when I saw that signing was like, in my head, I was like, that's not Tanner Scott. But I was like, he could be the fill-in. Like, this is like a budget, knockoff Tanner Scott, where it's like, it's a vert fastball that'll crush lefties, and then he's got some sweepers to also crush lefties. So this is your lefty option. I almost think like the Minter ideas, et cetera, kind of out of the water.
Okay. That's honestly a little more positive than I expected. So that's good. Sean Henderson.
He's good.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Lance, Kyle did a video on New Year's Day, asked fans if we could make one move before the start of the season, what would it be? And wants to ask you that.
It's Tanner Scott. That's an easy one. You're giving me money agnostic here. We already talked about this. That's like the quickest answer I'm going to give him any of these, but that's an
There you
easy
go.
one.
You don't even have to say
Yep.
anything more.
Nope.
All right. Want to ask you, just kidding. We're not going to ask that question. All right, let's go to next question. There's a lot of comments. I'm not seeing many questions here. This is what happens when you don't have a producer. You have to read through and talk at the same time. We're going to go to Sean again because that was the next question mark I saw. Lance, do you think the starting pitcher trade market is kind of on hold because they're waiting to see what happens to Sasaki? We kind of talked about that, but yeah.
I kind of feel like that's the case. I think especially because we're so close to this window now that like if I'm an agent and I'm like holding a guy and like I think all these 6 teams or so are also probably teams in on other starting pitchers.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So if you're pitching Sasaki, I imagine on a rotation spot and like you kind of got to know whether you get him. You're not going to go and get Flaherty if you're going to push your 4 down and then all of a sudden he's blocked out. You want to go 6-man, etc. So I just think everyone's waiting. I mean, he's a big domino to fall, even though he's cheap, but he's a big like roster piece. Like, I can't imagine he's sitting in a room and they're like, "We don't have room for you. We'd love to make you a reliever." It's like if I'm him, I'm like, I want to be a starter. I want a spot. Like, I don't care if it's every 6th day or whatever, but like, you got to start me the entire year. And maybe we could recap if in 2 years I'm really struggling or something. So
if I was a front office guy, though, I would almost use that to my advantage of like, okay, if everyone's waiting for Sasaki, then I'm going to go start talking to Flaherty. I'm going to go, but unless the agents are also like, hey,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And
because if they think they're going to get a bigger offer from another team that misses on Sasaki, then like, I think I as an agent would wait too,
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, these are the offers right now, but if we wait a week, there's a chance we pick up 2 more offers and all of them are higher than your current offer. Do you want to sign now to your player? And the player's like, just wait a week and a half,
Yeah.
So,
all right. Jive Turkey says, is Alcantara still on the roster by spring training? Good question.
Yeah, I think so. Otherwise, he's traded. And I do think he makes it as a logical piece. He's believes shortening up at his option years now. So he's the guy that got promoted last year over Casey because of that reason. So I think he has 1 more year of options available. And then I don't think he's optionable in 2026. Could be wrong. Could be 2027 off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, I think he's on the team unless he's traded. I struggle to see any other route. He makes sense as a trade piece. I agree, just because I don't know where he's playing. But again, you got to match up, man. Like, is that the centerpiece for Pablo Lopez? Like, and again, that probably comes down to the monetary side. Like, if you're going to give up Kevin, then like how much? Where's the money flow there? Like, he's a big piece, so you probably get the Twins to pick up 10 mil or something like that on him. And like, I'd probably do that. I like Lopez. I think Lopez is a very good pitcher. I think he's also like one of those guys who's going to be a bit impenetrable to aging because I think he's very like cerebral in terms of how he thinks about pitching from the interviews I've seen. I generally like betting on those guys to stave off some regression as they age.
Okay. Danny Newman, and I want to just know your thoughts on this. I'm guessing Roki won't go more than to 100 or to 120 innings in the regular season. I mean, we thought that Shota was only going to do 140 and went out and threw 173 in his first year, which was a shock to all of us. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I hate to say it's one that's tough to answer, but you really got to know his off-season programming and what he's done. And like how you intake him as a team, like where is he in terms of his ramp up? Has he been throwing breaking balls all off season? Like there's a lot of questions there. I would imagine like he's doing great and doing everything that he should be doing. But if like the Cubs in particular, like Justin Steele in the room, like again, Steele stayed in Arizona, I believe that off season that he jumped like 60 plus innings. And like in today's age, that's a huge jump. Like everyone only projects like a 20 to 30 inning jump year over year, et cetera. But like Justin committed to staying there, and like that dude got immediate feedback from trainers the entire offseason. That is really valuable. And Sasaki does not have that. So I'm a team. I get him. I send him to our facility ASAP and like get him almost like take a diagnostic on him. Like where is he in his ramp up? Like we're really get understanding what he was doing. It's not like the organization got a chance to put like their offseason fingerprint on him. So I struggle to see unless you get really confident over what he was doing and he was in like exactly the protocol you would have him in to get him to 150. I struggle to see how you would get over this threshold that Danny mentions of 120. But there's just a lot of questions there on like where is he in his offseason progression is really it's as simple as that. And I mean, I'm obviously not a strength guy, et cetera, but I imagine the strength staff and Hotovy, Casey Jacobson, et cetera, all these people now on the staff like are wondering if the Cubs were to get Sasaki, like where is he? Like is he going to be ready for that series to throw in Japan 4 innings, 5 innings? Is he just going to be a 1 inning guy in that situation? Like Those are real questions. Like they're gonna have to submit a roster earlier than anybody in the majors aside from the Dodgers, and that matters.
Yeah. This is a really good question, and it brings up a conversation I had with Jesse Rogers, and I would love to hear your take on it because I know you watched it. Sebastian Bravo says, not sure why we're in this warped reality where the Cubs must stay below the first luxury tax while the good teams are blowing all the stop signs. Guys, if you didn't see the interview with Jesse Rogers, a lot of it was based around the fact that the Cubs don't seem to be pulling in the cash if you only focus on the Cubs, not the real estate around the organization, as many fans think. And then also number two is that with the CBA, there's a lot of things that could change by 2026. And so that seems to be a driving force. I hate it. I don't like it. I'm a fan. I don't like hearing the excuses, but also the other big thing was he said the Dodgers have the best TV deal in all of baseball, and that's why they're able to spend the way that they do. Meanwhile, the Cubs and Marquee, where you work, Lance, are not. It's not the cash cow that they thought. So I guess just the overall arching theme of all of that. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation. I think the main thing is like it's not even getting past the first luxury tax. I would think of this. I'm trying to like somewhat appease how the front office and Ricketts would be thinking too here is like, if we're not willing to go to the extent of the Mets and the Dodgers and these other teams that are just blowing past the luxury tax marks, then like, what is our real gain by jumping over the first tax, Like it's one of those things. Like obviously, you're putting a more competitive team on the field, et cetera. Like there's a variety of reasons, but if you really think of it from like a business perspective, which I hate to do, I get it, but that's the reality. This is how people think. Unless you get Steve Cohen in, and he's just willing to completely throw away rationale in terms of contract decision making and push your team that hard. Which, obviously in the last couple of years being the evidence, the Ricketts have not done. But like that's the angle is like. The marginal value of the dollar as you go over the first luxury tax is not that great because you're not increasing your probability wildly that this team will make a massive run in the playoffs when you have the Mets and the Dodgers are probably going to be the most aggressive teams at the deadline. Also, we're probably the most aggressive teams this offseason in terms of just like, we're willing to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I bet the Dodgers pick up Tanner Scott. Like, I bet that dollar comes down a little and they give him defer some money and pay him over 5 years, and they get it down to like a couple million a year, $12 million a year, and then they have the leverage guy that killed Ohtani all off season or postseason, et cetera. So it's like that's how I look at it, and I hate to say it that way, but I really try to always play both sides. Where it's like, let me understand this perspective and this perspective. The fan perspective is just put the best team on the field. The business perspective is like, if we're blown past the first luxury tax, are we willing to spend Cohen and I don't know what the group is that owns the Dodgers is called, but like. Right. Are we willing to spend that money? If not, then like, why don't we stay under and reset this year and go after Tucker? That's what I hope they're thinking, Like if we reset this year, we get a much more aggressive offer on Tucker next year. Because the problem is what you run into is where you get like the multi-year penalties. That's where a lot of the owners, it seems, have some hesitancy. I'm not saying Ricketts does specifically, but you've seen continually other teams get under that first tax after being over it for 2 years. They don't want to hit that third year. And you got a lot of money coming off the books in 26 with this team, right? Is Hap's up. There's like 3 other players that are up. So I hope they're angling for that. It's like pay Tucker a boatload, $450 million, unbelievable player, stays in Chicago the rest of his career. And then you have some flexibility in the next couple of years, as opposed to like going over again this year. Then your first Tucker year, you're potentially going over for a third time. And then you'll be able to reset the year after. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of where my brain is at in thinking about this.
Yeah, I mean, there's unless you're talking to Tom Ricketts directly, I just don't think you're going to have the answer to all this stuff, right? And that was my point too. Is like, okay, if you're an owner and you have equity partners, the only people that are seeing the P&Ls and know the true story is the owner, and then the equity partners probably have like 80% of the picture. Outside of that, he's not going to tell reporters. He's not going to tell us. He's not going to be transparent about that because that's not his job, nor does that make any sense to do that. Always, because it makes for an interesting conversation. So, a personal question from Justin Steele, and then we'll get back to a couple things. Are you good on time? You got another 5 minutes or so?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure what time it is. I unfortunately can't see the clock on my phone when we record, so you got me.
It is
the twilight zone.
Well, it's 5:15 now.
We're good.
Okay. Justin wants to know, when did Lance stop playing baseball, age and level? I'm wondering why he's not asking me the same question, but I'll let you.
Yeah, this is an unfortunate answer for me. I stopped in high school. So like varsity high school basically I played, and then that was kind of it. Wasn't particularly good. Was pretty undersized for a while. Really wish I kind of pushed it in college and played club at UMass Amherst, which I don't think would have been crazy hard to make because their baseball team is not good. But yeah, I mean, I played recreational softball and some men's leagues in college too, but
Yeah.
travel ball my life. Summer and fall I used to play. I actually picked up hockey in college. It was something I got into. Played like
Ooh.
beer league and stuff, which is crazy to pick up hockey. I never skated, but I played like roller hockey when I was younger. So yeah, I wasn't particularly great. And the arm is tightened up. I have an Instagram story where I threw off Wrigley's mound. We had like a work event at Marquee where we got to play on the field, play some softball. My God, the bicep, everything is like super tight. I have like no layback anymore. It's really brutal. So
It's the
everything's
same for
tightened up,
me.
unfortunately,
I
Justin.
I tried to get back into the game this last year, and I watched a couple bullpens that I threw, and I was like, that doesn't look like an athlete. So I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
gonna
no, no. I was like,
stay
I'm
away
gonna stop
from-
this.
Yeah. All right. Furious says, "Hey Lance, what do you think Brandon Birdsell's role for the Cubs in 2025 and the future is in general?" You were kind of mentioning like a number
Yeah,
5.
I think he's a 4-5. Like his max is probably a 4. The floor is probably a 5. Like he's a starting pitcher of some kind. I don't think he's impact. Um, they played with a slider shape last year, kind of broken into 2 pitches, which has been a theme that I kind of like. So he's got that Ben Brownie kind of more depth ball style slider, just like very vertical, works versus both handedness. And then I think they also added in a cutter where he only had one slider. So they basically took that pitch and were like, Zoop, we'll make this one harder and work versus lefties, and this one's pretty platoon neutral and is more your depth swing miss pitch. So I like that adjustment with him. I don't think that's something that's really been in too many scouting reports on him. But if you look at like the end of year data on Baseball Savant, it does show up. And I talked to some people in the Ori that also confirmed the adjustment too. So I'm a little bit more bullish. Like I like those adjustments because like the public has a perception of a guy, and then you see an adjustment late in the season, and you're like, okay, like this is not baked into how people are thinking about him, you know. So I
Yeah.
think they can maybe possess a little more upside than you would expect. As far as his role, probably spotter, probably starts at AAA, and then he's probably, I guess we'll see if he dominates early. He might be the first guy up in terms of injury. Um, but again, if things might move around with Sasaki in this respect. They get Sasaki, then like Assad gets pushed to the pen. He's probably the next guy up. But if the back of the rotation is Boyd Assad to start the year, and one of those guys stinks or is just not healthy, like it does feel to me like Birdsell's probably close to ready. I
Okay.
don't really think there's much more polish that's needed there.
Okay, cool. Ed Dwyer again says, also you've touched on infield depth. Could we pick up anyone in a deal as a package with someone else, a pitcher, or will Bruhan start opening day? Also, what is Workman's projections for hitting?
I can't imagine Bruhan's on the opening day lineup. Perhaps he's on the bench, but I also think he's somewhat of a DFA candidate if something comes
Yeah.
around. He's a really light bat. The versatility there is just that he plays like every position on the diamond, and he's like a 70, 80 runner. Although his stolen base rate hasn't been particularly great, so I wonder whether there's something there the Cubs can maybe unlock. So I don't know off the top of my head who else they'd be able to pick up. Like we were just talking about free agent options there, and it's like Iglesias and a couple others. But if Horner is in fact not ready for opening day, we don't really know here. Kyle was speculating that a little bit, but I don't know. I struggle to see. I think you get Shaw at second and Workman at third, but yeah, the projection of Workman's hitting is not crazy great. Like he's a swing and miss guy with some pop. He had a nice jump in performance last year. Stopped switch hitting between 23 and 24, so he's a pure left-handed hitter, and I think that helped him a bit, from my understanding. But he's a glove man. Like everything I've heard about this guy's, he's 6'4" and he moves like he's
Oh,
Dansby
wow.
Swanson. Like he's
Oh,
huge and he's a
okay.
really good glove. Like the dude is
Okay.
like a plus shortstop defender. So you move a guy like that to third, and he's like plus plus. So they're really playing the defensive card there. All those ground balls to the left side that steal allows, that broken bat still will be scooped up by Workman at third. So
Okay.
I think he'll enjoy playing having him behind him.
I like it. Evil Wax 73. Hi, Lance. Do you think the Cubs are done making moves this offseason? And if not, who do you think would be the next target? So we already asked what you would do, Tanner Scott,
Yeah.
but who do you think would be a next target? I don't think they're done.
I don't think they're done either, but I don't feel like the moves are going to be large coming forward. Again, the Sasaki domino's got to fall. After that falls, I imagine it's a reliever or two. And we talked about the names there. I think it's a Yates, a Finnegan, a Leclerc. Maybe I'm missing someone else, but I don't think they have like an impact move left. I'd love to be proven wrong there. And it makes sense to me that they add a reliever or two. Otherwise, I struggle a bit. Maybe another bench bat of some kind that we're missing. But I don't know, man. I struggle to see like who else kind of fits on this team from a that we've heard available in trade. Although the Cubs have been sneaky at times with these trades that kind of pop up out of nowhere, right?
very
Like the
sneaky,
Bush
yeah.
trade came out of nowhere. No one had any idea on that. It's a
Yeah.
huge trade for both
Yeah.
teams. You know, they gave up a couple top prospects and got back a stud at first base. So I wonder. The Cubs are pretty good with like hiding this stuff. So if something pops in the next couple weeks here, right at CubsCon or after, you know.
Do you think Mariners starting pitchers dead in the water in terms of conversations for trades?
Castillo, I don't think so, but all the others I do. I mean, I had that at the beginning of the offseason. I talked to some people who like were in front offices, and the price tags on all those guys are insane, and justifiably so. And this relates back to the first part of this live where we were talking about just the dollars for going to starting pitching, and guys who are not even starting pitchers like Clay Holmes. You know, are going to convert with a lot of risk, etc. Like those guys are getting a ton of money. So if I'm the Mariners and I have Kirby and Gilbert for 3 and 4 years of control, 2 top 15 pitchers of baseball, 20 pitchers of baseball. Well, yeah, of course I'm going to ask for the world. I'm going to ask for Casey, Triantos, Rojas, 3 other players. Like, why not? Like, I go pay it. You know, like, what's your offer here? Like, we just saw Frankie Montas get $17 million. Like, you're gonna lowball me on 3 years of control of a top 20 pitcher in baseball. It's like, come on. So I just Castillo, I think, is gettable. Again, it's going to go back to the dollar side. It's like, are they willing to eat some money there? And is it a pure money play? I wonder whether a lot of these teams that are willing to give up these guys, it's not like they're pushing on luxury tax stuff. So I imagine the angle there on trading Castillo would be, we want good prospects back, which in that case means the Cubs take all the 21. And I don't really foresee that happening. So again, it's a match thing. It's a tough match thing. Like the Luzardo thing I thought made sense because he was cheap. So I thought there was a nice match there. It was like, you're just picking up $6 million or whatever he's projected in ARB. Castillo picking up 21. If I'm the Mariners, I just want good prospects back. I'm cool with eating the money there. It's not like they have huge financial problems and stuff. So I don't know if that's a match for the Cubs.
Well, he is Lance Brozdowski. We are doing this every single week where you get to ask Lance your questions. Make sure you go check out his YouTube channel, youtube.com/@LanceBroz, BROZ. Lance, brother, we'll see you next week. And then the week after that, I'll be seeing you in CubsCon.
Looking forward to it, man. Take it easy.
Thanks, guys.